Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome. My name is Mohamed ElSanousi. I direct the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers in Washington, D.C. It's a global network aimed to empower religious leaders around the world. First of all, I would like to congratulate the RIS for this service to our community and to the community as a whole. This particular session, we would like to address an important topic: interfaith partnership, collaboration, and dialogue, which is very essential to us as Muslim communities. Yesterday, we listened to a number of our prominent speakers, and they emphasized the point of interreligious dialogue and how to build our relationship with people of other faith, people of the book, Ahl al-Kitab. So in this particular session, we are so delighted to be joined by prominent interfaith leaders from the United States of America. We appreciate their dedication. They came all the way from Washington and other places, from Dallas, Texas, and New York this morning. So we will enjoy about an hour conversation with them. So without further ado, I would like to invite my guests to join me on the stage. Cardinal McCarrick. Cardinal McCarrick Cardinal Theodore McCarrick is the Archbishop Emeritus of Washington, D.C. So when we say cardinal, what that mean? What that mean is Cardinal McCarrick is one of the 115 cardinals around the world that elect the Pope of the Catholic Church around the world. So welcome, Cardinal McCarrick. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Rabbi Batya Steinlauf. Please join me and welcome Rabbi Batya Steinlauf. She is the Director of Social Justice and Intergroup Relations at the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, D.C. Thank you, Rabbi Batya, for joining us. Our next guest is Imam Khalid Latif. Imam Latif is one of the prominent members of our community and well known for his interreligious collaboration and understanding. Welcome, Imam Latif. Next, I would like to invite my good friend, Dr. William Vendley. Dr. Vendley is the Secretary General of Religions for Peace International. So what that means, he leads interreligious councils in more than 92 countries around the world. Welcome, Dr. Vendley. Our next panelist is Pastor Bob Roberts. Pastor Bob Roberts is the founder and president and the chief pastor of the mega church in Dallas, Texas, And he built 173 churches in the last 10 years. So welcome. So I will introduce my guests here, but this is a conversation where we will have a conversation, and the purpose of this discussion is to talk about the experience that prominent interreligious leaders such as Cardinal McCarrick, Rabbi Batya, Imam Latif, Dr. Vendley, and Pastor Roberts have been doing this day in and day out. So I will begin my first questions to Cardinal McCarrick. But let me tell you just a little bit. I can't go through the resume or the bio of Cardinal McCarrick. Otherwise, it will take our whole hour. But please feel free to look Cardinal McCarrick online. Dr. Cardinal McCarrick, he got his PhD in sociology from the Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Cardinal McCarrick also the past chair of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Committee on Domestic Policy, International Policy, Migration. He has been Chancellor of the Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Cardinal McCarrick was also a member of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. And he was honored by a number of presidents around the world, including the President of the United States and President of Lebanon. Cardinal McCarrick speaks 5 languages: English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. But our conversation today will be in English, Cardinal. So, Cardinal McCarrick, I remember when Pope Francis met with the OIC Secretary General, and the OIC Secretary General then, Akmal ad-Din Ihsan Oglu, asked the Holy Father how I can have the 57 countries of the Muslim world to engage in interreligious dialogue. The Holy Father, the Pope, said to him, talk to Cardinal McCarrick. So Cardinal McCarrick, please tell us what is the story behind that.
The Holy Father was kidding. or Mohamed was. Mohamed is a dear friend. He introduced everybody except himself. This is one of the nicest men I've ever met, and we all can say the same thing. And I tell you what I believe. I believe that the people who are involved in the work that he's involved in, getting all the faith people together, getting everybody together. When I get up to speak now, I say, in the name of God, the merciful and the compassionate, because I feel so close. I feel so close to all of you and to my friend Mohamed. We were together in the Central African Republic, which is a difficult place, and there's a lot of hatred there and a lot of ignorance there. But what makes us feel this potential is that the Imam, I guess he's a mufti of that area, and the Archbishop Catholic of that area, and the evangelical pastor of that area go work together. And they all work together for peace. And if they weren't doing it together, it would not be done. And I think that's the lesson that we might have today. I won't talk long because the other people are much smarter than I am, so you should listen to them. Besides, I'm older than anybody else. This is why I have trouble walking. I think that's why I have trouble walking. I also have I have one bad knee. So I'm telling you, old people always tell about their illnesses. You know that. Whether they're Muslim or Christian or what, they always tell about their illnesses. But anyway, I think that we will never find peace in the world unless we find it in our religions. Unless we find it in the one God. There is only one God. Someone once said to me, well now, the Catholic God was, how does he relate? I said, wait a minute, stop. There's only one God. We may approach him in different ways. We may call them by different names, but we know that there is only one God, and that is the God who raised up Jesus, the same God who raised up Mohamed, and basically the same God who raised up Abraham. And we are all children of Abraham. We're all part of that one great belief system. And it is that one God who wants to bring us together. And if we let him, it'll happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cardinal McCarrick. So I want to turn to you, Rabbi Batya. Rabbi Batya Steinlauf, she's the director of the Social Justice and Intergroup Relations at the Jewish Community Relations. Rabbi Batya ordained at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York in 1998. Rabbi Batya worked closely with local Jewish organizations to promote social justice and interreligious understanding, and she now serves as the president of the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington, as well as the co-chair of the Montgomery County Executive Faith Community Advisory Working Group. Rabbi Batya, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate Rabbi Batya joining us and be with us during her Sabbath time. So Rabbi Batya is observing the Sabbath, but she felt this is critical, this is very important, so she traveled from Washington. Rabbi Batya, the Interfaith Conference in Washington is a vibrant organization. I believe you have 11 faith communities as a member of the Interfaith Conference. So tell us, what are the basically tangible kind of initiatives and projects that the Interfaith Conference is doing in the United States?
If you'll give me permission, I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Faith Community Working Group of Montgomery County.
Sure.
All right, so the Interfaith Conference in Metropolitan Washington brings together 11 different faith communities focusing on advancing justice, nurturing understanding, and building community. We have a number of programs from the artistic, where we bring together representative groups from the different faith communities to do a concert every fall, giving awards to members of the community who are involved in building community and doing interfaith work. We promote, whenever possible, a grassroots engagement in interfaith work. So one of our major programs are the dinner dialogues. So we'll bring in members of the community who are willing to host in their home. We'll do some training about how does one do interfaith dialogue, how do you have an open, honest, respectful conversation, and arrange for people to invite over members of other faith communities who they don't already know into their homes to have those conversations. Sorry, it's a long list. We're actually pretty busy. The Faith Community Working Group of Montgomery County is another organization I'm co-chair, along with Dr. Hedy Amiramati and Reverend Carol Flett, and we work with the County Executive of Montgomery County to bring together the faith community in that area of Maryland. And that group has a faith leaders response team, so if there's an act of hate anywhere in the county, faith leaders from across the religious spectrum will show up and demonstrate that we're all in this together, we're here together. We are trained together as emotional and spiritual care volunteers. So I actually have a purple vest and an official badge, so that God forbid there's a tragedy, a disaster, a crisis anywhere in Montgomery County, I can be officially deployed by the Department of Homeland Security to go and offer support to victims of the tragedy and to first responders. This is my job. How fun is this? I'm able to work with an education committee where we bring together representatives from the faith community with MCPS former principals and Montgomery County Public Schools teachers, and we try to identify what are the needs of the faith community in the county and how can we work with the school system to make sure that the community feels comfortable in the public schools. So the local MCPS system put out a book called Respecting Religious Diversity in the Public Schools, which is a book that talks about what are your rights as a person of faith in the public school system. And that includes issues such as how, if you need to take a day off for a religious holiday, who do you contact? How do you go about that? How do you remind the teacher that that's a day that they don't have to do homework? There's no expectation that there should be testing on that day. If you need a space set aside to go during lunch, if you're fasting, who do you talk to? How do you make sure that that happens for you? Because you have that right. If you dress modestly and you're asked to participate in a sport activity, you're allowed to cover your head. And this is just a way of letting everyone know that these are the ways that the modest dress is to be accommodated, or whatever your faith community's needs are met. And one thing we're able to do, which I love, is we put in that book a phone number and an email address so that if your needs aren't being met and you're not finding that this guide is working for you, or if you're not working well with the administration, you can actually call and say, this is a problem, or I don't see where the answer is. And a lot of this need is about giving people access to information they didn't have. I got to do this committee, so I talk about it a lot, right? So I was actually able to go to the Montgomery County Muslim Community Center, and do a session along with representatives from the school system and members of the school board about how to use the guide and what your rights are and how do you have an argument, because it's one of my best things. Right? Like, who do you call? How do you advocate for yourself? And those efforts bringing people together is very powerful, and because we have these relationships, they really, you can do a lot, and you can find each other quickly when you need to.
Great. Thank you so much, Rabbi Batya. I want to turn to you, Imam Chaplain Khalid Latif. Imam Khalid Latif doesn't need any introduction here, but I really wanted to focus on a couple of things. Imam Latif is well known in the United States in his capacity and ability to engage in interreligious partnership and dialogue. He has been inspiring youth around the country in the United States to engage in interreligious dialogue. Imam Latif served as executive director and the first chaplain in New York University, as well as Imam Latif named by the Royal Institute in Amman, as well as the Walid bin Talal Center for Christian-Muslim Understanding in Georgetown University, as one of the 5 most influential Muslims around the world. Imam Latif made history in September of this year, when he represented the entire Muslim communities in the United States to be in the stage with the Holy Father, Pope Francis. So, Imam Latif, I wanna really ask you a question. How does that feel? How does that feel? You are, next to the Pope in young age, representing the Muslim communities, recognize your interreligious basically understanding and partnership.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's really interesting. Many people actually asked me about the experience. The question that I got asked the most for some reason was, what did the Pope smell like? And I couldn't really understand. I mean, he spelled nice, mashallah. About a week after the gathering at the Ground Zero site, I was in Ohio at Case Western University, and there was a young woman who asked me, what did you really think of him, and what did the experience mean? And I said to her, what was really remarkable was the sheer numbers of people who lined up for hours to just see him drive by, not even hear him. And this group was not just people who had a deep relationship to their Catholicism, but also people who had a tangential relationship to their Catholicism, and people who had no relation to the Catholic faith at all. They came from very diverse backgrounds. The night before we spoke together at the Ground Zero site, he had delivered a sermon at a very large cathedral in New York. And there was tons of people who had to go through security, well in advance to be able to just be seated by the time he got there, and they had to wait until he left before they could even move. And it would be really easy to assume that anything that came out of his mouth, people would just be in such a state that they would take whatever he said as being truth. And for many, this would be the highlight of their life. They wanted to just be in his presence and hear what he had to say. And most of his messaging for that entire trip was things that were scripted. And that night, he went off script, and in that cathedral, as he delivered his message, he started first from his own volition, making a special prayer for the 700 Muslims who died at Hajj that morning. And I asked this young woman in Ohio, why do you think he did that? He's in a city that has the realities of NYPD surveillance of Muslim communities. He's in a city where it's not always so easy to construct mosques. He's in a city that the atrocious acts of September 11th, 2001 took place. And nobody would have faulted him for not making that prayer. He just simply did it because he felt it was the right thing to do. And I think the mindset that is exerted there is one that can really be critical in terms of us changing a lot of what we see society functioning off today if we truly grasp it. This is a man who chooses to eat with the homeless instead of politicians, right? This is a man who told his global community before anyone else that it is incumbent upon them to open their doors to the Syrian refugees when everyone else was saying that we should just keep them out. And I would say that, for me, it was just a truly awe-inspiring moment. I don't know what I did to deserve to be there, but I could say that if anything, it was one of the key moments that I hope that shaped my identity, and it allows for me to understand really what it means to be driven by values, right? And to be in a place where your actions actually coincide with the values you claim to profess.
Right. Yeah, I was in the audience, and you did your public message, but I also saw you were talking to the Pope, whispering to the Pope. So I'm not sure, what did you say to him?
Well, I don't know if many people can ever say that they shared secrets with the Pope. So I'm going to keep that between he and I.
Right. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Imam Latif. It's really hard to introduce Dr. William Vendley. He's a close friend of mine, and we work with Dr. Vendley around the world in a number of issues. Dr. Vendley currently is the Secretary General of Religions for Peace International. He is a member of its World Council, which consists of 60 senior religious leaders from all continents. He coordinates the activities and projects of Religions for Peace in 92 nations around the globe. I can go on and on to talk about Dr. Vendley's achievements, but Dr. Vendley has done a historical project where he actually raised about $200 million to support the African children, what we call it, the African Children Initiative, to address the needs of African children orphans by HIV/AIDS. So the initiative resulted in raising $200 million, working with interreligious councils at the grassroots level to help those children who are impacted. Dr. Vendley, share with us your own experience and interreligious dialogue. And I heard you in a number of occasions always saying that as religious leaders, we have to sit around the table and we have to put the problem in the center of the table and see each tradition contribution to resolve that problem.
Thank you, Dr. ElSanousi. I was going to call him Mohamed, who is my beloved brother. First of all, I just want to share how grateful I am to be here. You know, to be honest, I'm just moving my house, and so when I was invited, I said, let me check with my wife. And she understood where I was to be coming, and she said, oh, please go. You should go and be with this new generation of Muslim men and women who will take such a decisive role in helping us all to go forward as the human beings that we are. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
Mohamed, you introduced me always in too generous of a way, but you give a little key to something that I think is relevant, and you, Pastor, were just talking about it. You mentioned, and we could mention any problem, any of the problems that are humiliating us or hurting us as human beings. You said, let's try to put that at the center of the table. In Africa at that moment, one of those problems was the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and Muslims gathered around that problem, and Christians gathered around the problem, and there were other religious traditions there as well. And then the question becomes a very deeply practical form of religious conviction. Your faith is about caring. It's about ultimate concern. No boundaries to your concern. Because God created everything, you join with your Creator in caring about God's creation. And the question back to us is, what will our community do, or what can it do, together with the other community, about shouldering a solution to that problem? And that beautiful, dignified act brings us into the very solidarity that God has created us for. Mm-hmm. And we find that not only do we do the work together, but we in turn are changed while we do the work together. And this is the great, in a way, mystery and beauty of our own time together in earth as believers. We are now thrust together. And the problems that we confront as the human family will not be solved by Muslims alone, or Christians alone, or Hindus alone, or Jews alone, by any of us alone. They will be solved, if they will be solved, by us together, and yet each of our communities will make unique and very specific contributions. I want to make one comment that I think is an overarching comment. The Pew Institute, the Pew Foundation, did a study about, unfortunately, a rising tide of global hostility, that communities are not trusting each other, that there's a breakdown of trust across the world. And, well, a rising tide of hostility is the beginning of a vicious cycle. if we don't trust each other, we are frightened of each other, then negative responses come out of us. We're all believers here, and I'm convinced that God is inviting us to work together to build a virtuous cycle. Did you read in the newspaper on December 21 about the Muslims on the bus in Kenya? Did you read it? Shabab unfortunately attacked the bus, and members of Shabab went into the bus and said to the Muslims, "Tell us who the Christians are." And actually the Muslims took off Islamic clothing and passed it around the bus so that people who were not Muslims could not be detected. Now, that's the kind of thing we all need to be doing for each other. And whenever Muslims are being burdened, small or heavy, and you have to bear some of this, I'm aware of that, then it's not just optional, it's a duty for believers of other communities to stand up and to be with you. You shouldn't be doubly burdened. And yet we're all minorities someplace and majorities someplace else. And the same sweet calculus holds, that we are to take care of each other. So I believe we are, Mohamed, we are looking at the generation that is going to be charged to bear the burdens and to bear them honestly and humbly, but to be the engines of a virtuous cycle between our religious communities. You have my trust and you have my prayers that you'll be ones to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vendley. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Pastor Bob Roberts. Pastor Roberts, Dr. Roberts, is the founding and senior pastor of Northwood Church near Dallas, Texas. Dr. Roberts, he has a mega church, and he has started over 173 churches in the United States and is the center for training new pastors from around the world. Pastor Roberts is well known for his engagement at the global level, and he worked in a number of countries, including Indonesia, Syria, the West Bank of Afghanistan, and Vietnam. And by the way, congratulations for the honor that just bestowed on you by the President of Vietnam. So Pastor Robert just got a medal of honor. Bob, I want to really ask you, just a couple of weeks ago, you brought about 25 young pastors from around the world to Washington, D.C., and you have been doing this for a number of years, trying to engage them and have them understand interreligious dialogue and the importance of that, not only in the United States, but around the world. So what's your objectives here? You know, you are looking into the interreligious partnership is the way to go at this time?
Well, I am the least likely person of all to be here. I am the conservative Christian. I'm a Protestant. I'm an evangelical of the tribe of Southern Baptists, which means I'm about as conservative as you can get. So the reality of working in interfaith work, that is not something my tribe values, talks about, or anything at all. I never dreamed in a million years that I would be involved doing the kinds of things that I am. But here's what I discovered. I was afraid of people. I grew up in deep East Texas, a very small town of 1,000 people, and we knew everything. We had God figured out, we had the world figured out, and if the rest of the world would just listen to us, we could bring world peace. At least that's how we thought. And one day I stumbled into the world, and I found out the world was not as nice and neatly packaged as I understood it. And furthermore, I discovered that to a large degree, my tribe was part of the problem in the world. We were creating some of the tension in the world unnecessarily. And I'm here to say to you, as an evangelical pastor from Texas, that Islamophobia is real, and that my tribe is responsible for a tremendous amount of it, and it breaks my heart. About a month ago, we had 100 pastors and 100 imams gather. First time ever, a gathering of 100 evangelical pastors with 100 imams. And we listened as somebody from my denomination and background literally gave the report and said that it is the evangelicals that have sometimes the worst view of Muslims, and they also create some of the biggest challenges for Muslims, and that's driven by the pastors. And I don't want to be a part of that. And I don't want my tribe to be a part of that. And so my goal is, here's what changed me. Here's what changed me. I was afraid of communists. They didn't believe in God. I signed up for had to sign up for the draft in my country, and the war stopped like a month before I would have had to gone. Here's what I learned. Our church began to work in Vietnam, and that's a long story how that happened. But the people that I feared the most, the Vietnamese and the communists, actually became some of the closest friends I have on the face of the earth. I remember thinking after 9/11, thank you, God, I no longer fear the communists. And this is really what I thought. Please don't be offended. But I thought, I'm glad I don't have to work with those mad Muslims in the world, because that's not a big deal. I've already worked with the communists. But the reality is I wound up working with those Muslims because I was asked to come to Afghanistan and do humanitarian work with the government. And so I did. And all these Muslims that I was supposed to be afraid of, I became close friends of theirs. I wound up working with the imams and literally connected pastors in America with imams in Afghanistan. And together we began to build clinics, hospitals, schools. We did projects together. We became very good friends. Now, if a Baptist pastor from Texas can hang out with a Muslim imam from Afghanistan and become close friends, then who's left that you can't get along with? And so we just came to the conclusion we were going to work for that. And so just 2 or 3 things that I've learned and why this matters to me. First of all, I think we have it all wrong. Our premise is, let's look at all the areas that we can agree upon, and then if we can see how much we have in common, then we'll get along. Now that may be true for people without God, but for those of us who claim we have God, shouldn't the test of our faith not be how much do we have in common so we can get along, but what if we are totally opposite in what we believe about God? Is our faith strong enough and our love of people strong enough that in spite of that, we can get along? I think that should be the measure, because if it's a matter of how much we have in common, there's always going to be a great divide because there are things we're always going to differ on. But if, on the other hand, it's based upon, I'm so secure in my faith that it doesn't matter what somebody else believes, I'm going to treat them with respect anyhow, even if I disagree, then there's nothing that I can't have in terms of a relationship with them. So I think that's critical. I also agree with what Dr. Vendley said. Interfaith, a lot of times, I really don't like the word interfaith. I like the word multi-faith, because I'm pretty passionate about my faith. I'm a conservative Christian, and I have some strong views that I'm not willing to compromise. But I do believe the best of my faith teaches me that I should be in a relationship with you. And so I like the word multi-faith, but here's what I discovered. We start with the head, so we talk about our faith, then maybe we like the person, it gets in our heart, and then it goes to our hand. I disagree with that. Start with the hand. Go to the table, because we're never going to agree everything about God. Start with the hand. Sweat together. This Rabbi, Jonathan Sachs, taught me that. Start with the hand. It then captures your heart, and then you're ready to have the head conversations. And if you can do that, you can be in relationship and you bring the tension down. One of the things that I realized, and I think you were there, Mohamed, we had an event at the National Cathedral. You were there. You were part of that. That's right. Yeah. And I'm friends with this prince from Saudi Arabia that I love very much. I've known him many years. And as I was in that room and the different religions were present, it hit me. I love God, I love Christians, and I love Muslims, and I love people of other religions. But something hit me that I never realized before. I love Muslims as much as I love Christians. And I had to stop and I had to think, now wait a minute. Have I just done something biblically that's wrong to love somebody outside my tribe as much as my tribe, to make sure that I'm gonna treat them with the exact same respect as my tribe? And I can't find anywhere in the New Testament where it said, love God first, Christians second, Muslims third. He just says, love God, love others. And that's my goal. At worst, if we can relate to one another, maybe we can bring down some of the tension in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. Yeah, Bob, you gave me a very good segue to ask my next question on religion and public square. Yesterday, you heard Dr. Jackson in his talk. He said that unless we save religion, we can't save Islam. How do you respond to that? And how do we collaborate to restore religion in a meaningful, balanced place in our society so religious people live comfortably without causing any kind of discomfort and uncomfort for people with no religion at all? So I want to start, Cardinal McCarrick.
Aren't these smart people? I'm honored to be part of them. And not only they're smart people, I think they're good people. And I saw how you were applauding them. They're nice people here. Let me just go to something else. He's my boss. I wouldn't dare not answer what he asked me to answer. I think the answer is basically something that Bob just said. When all comes to all, when everything comes out, we're all together, and we teach, and I think we all teach, that we are all children of one Father. That when we talk of God as merciful and compassionate, it's because we know that he loves us. And when you look at the 99 great names of God and see how many of them make it clear that we are not alone. We are never alone. And in my community, we often talk about philosophy. I don't understand it too much, but we do talk about it a lot. But the great philosophy is this. Every one of us has a certain dignity that comes because God made us. And we are all children of that same dignity. So to be a human being is a wonderful thing. To be a human being is to be loved by God. To be a human being is to have a certain great dignity that everybody should recognize in all the world. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter what language you speak or what the color of your skin is. We are all brothers and sisters in God's one human family. And I think this does, yell at me if I bolt over my question, but I think that what Mohamed was asking us is solved in a certain way. I don't know how it is in Canada, but I know in the United States, our Muslim people are hurting. They're hurting because of the stupid things that some sort of supposedly important people are saying. They're hurting because a lot of people are saying hateful things. And I just want to say to you, we love you. I want you to know that. I want to say that anyone who has ever met a Muslim, oh sure, there are bad people and everything, we know that. But anyone who has ever met a believing, faithful Muslim has been graced by God by that meeting. And that's what we have to do. We, Christians and Jews and everybody else, has to be able to say, no, I have yet, to these people who are attacking Muslims, say, did you ever meet a Muslim? Did you ever see a Muslim family? I was saying to my buddy here, who spoke so well. He would have spoken better if he brought his sidekick over, his little son, who was bright and charming and joyful. You know, what a blessing that youngster is going to grow up to be a great Muslim and maybe a great teacher in Islam. And so those of us who have had the privilege of dealing with people of other faiths, Bob said it so well, those of us who have had that great privilege of knowing Muslims, of knowing Jews, of knowing Christians of different denominations, those of us who have done that are blessed because hopefully if we open our eyes and open our hearts and open our hands, as Bob said, if we open our lives, we're going to see how blessed it is to have people who believe in your faith, people who try to keep it all together, people whose generosity in the zakat is so outstanding and oftentimes better than the Christians are, because they believe in this God who loves us. They believe in this God who wants us all to be happy. We believe in this God who wants every single one of us to understand how much he is part of our lives and how much we must be part of it. So when you hear these dumb things that some people say, just remember that some of us, well, I'm not too smart, but the others of us here, that we know you and we love you, and we're going to protect you and stay with you and help you and lead you any way we can, now and always.
Thank you.
I think that sort of, in a certain way, he's smiling, so he's not mad at me. That more or less answers your question.
Thank you so much. No, it's wonderful. You want to answer that, Rabbi Batya?
How do we get the message of what the meaning of religion is out to
Right, and
the rest of society?
just we have to save religion in order for us to save Islam. That's Dr. Jackson's statement yesterday. So how we can save religion in the public square?
Right. And I think that's an important issue that's come up in every interfaith setting I've been in for years, is how do we help other people understand the role of religion and how that's meaningful in the world. I heard a quote recently, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, which is a religious person, a spiritual person, cares about their own spiritual health and the physical health of everyone else. And it's only the hypocrite who cares about other people's spiritual health. And I think the message we all understand as religious people is that we are all together, all of humanity, all of nature. We're all part of God's creation. So we're all part of, and there's a sanctity in that. Right? The first human being, God breathed life, literally, into his nose. And each breath we take, we are aware of where we come from. And for us to help others understand that life is enriched and the world is enriched by having that sense of our place in it and our connection to one another and our place in our relationship to God is helpful. It's important for the world to understand why religion is valuable and how we can work together and create justice and care and compassion in the world.
Great. Thank you so much. Anyone would like to contribute to that? Yes, please, Dr. Vendley, yes. To answer, yes, please, the question, yes.
So first of all, Dr. Mohamed, I think the question is exactly, you mentioned it arose here in the conference, and I think it's a civilizational question. It's a question to all of us, this role of religion and the public square. First of all, I think one of the principles that we've widely adopted in multi-religious cooperation is valid to help us tackle this question of religion in the public square. Mm-hmm. In multi-religious cooperation, we are adamant. Don't leave your faith at the door. You come in as the person you totally are with your faith. Otherwise, the conversation has just been impoverished. And so if we are going to be members of plural societies, we have to be the members that we are, the people who truly believe. Secondly, Mohamed, there's a famous member of Harvard who lived some years ago. He's passed away, William James. And William James raised some questions to us, which as believers, which I think is really helpful. William James, speaking about our religious belief, said simply, if it's true, it makes a difference. Tell me the difference it makes. If it's true that you love God and that God is all-merciful, how does that make you different in the way you'll live in society, the way you'll regard others, take care of each other, those you don't know as well as those you do? So I think we're invited as believers not only to own who we are in our belief, but always to be asking ourselves the deep question about the difference it makes. And third, I think we have to be humble. Cultures move more slowly than one lifetime. And we're in a period where we have to translate effectively what it means to live together, not into what you were pointing out, not into dumbing down, but in terms of that deepest mystery that animates us, the mystery of God, the mystery that is co-present always in the most ordinary details of our life. We live at a time where some of our sciences investigating some domains of reality, and they're very legitimate, but they may elevate themselves to say, but there's no other dimension of reality to investigate in addition. As a believer, I think that's wrong. And as a believer, I'm struggling and will continue to struggle to integrate the deep virtues of strength we have, which are sciences, with another dimension of mystery, which we understand in our faith and is offered to us in our faith. That's a cultural project that is ongoing, and we need to be working together to shape in the public square a sensibility, cultural sensibility to what we understand as virtues that are shaped by our belief and confidence in a merciful God. And that's work, Mohamed, that we join together in, where your faith strengthens me in my faith, and your contribution calls forth the contribution of the other community. So we're in this together, I believe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vendley. Bob, you want to answer that? I will have another question for you.
I'd like to answer that one.
Okay, please
Would
go
you let
ahead.
me answer that one?
Yes.
Because I think it's the most important question that there is. How do you live your faith in the public square? We're living in the most fascinating time, human history ever. Migration is the order of the world. Right. All people are all places now. I mean, I know they're not supposed to be there, but they're actually Christians in Saudi Arabia, believe it or not. And there are Muslims in Texas, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Every religion is everywhere, and it's not bad. It is a fantastic thing. God's getting us ready for heaven. I mean, the world is going to be everybody all mixed up. So it's not bad. So what migration does is it puts us all in the public square where all the ideas are present. And so it's an opportunity for you to talk about your faith. I was in Saudi Arabia a while back ago, and a reporter was interviewing me, and he said, how has being around all these Muslims affected your faith? And I said, it's made me a better Christian. And he said, what? How can you say that? I said, because Muslims have forced me to ask deep questions about my faith. What do I believe? Why do I believe it? Can I explain it? Can I understand it? You drove me closer to God and the Jesus of the New Testament than my seminary ever could have. The guy was a little upset, I think. But the reality is, being in the public square allows us to do that. So what that means is, how do we talk in the public square? We have to learn to be clear, core with what we're saying, and kind to other people. We're hateful sometimes. So like in my city, there's a guy who's a part of my tribe. He stands up and he says that Islam is demonic and all of this stuff. Well, he doesn't even know his New Testament, because there's nowhere Jesus said, trash other religions to get them to follow yours. Jesus doesn't do that.
Right.
Here's what Jesus says. If I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. So my goal is not to change you of your religion. My goal is to lift up Jesus. And he'll do in your life, and you'll make whatever decision you need to make for that. So the goal is not merely to trash another person's religion. One of the things that I teach pastors is never, never, never vilify another religion. If your faith is growing because you're trashing someone else's religion, you've really got a weak religion. So I would just challenge you at that point and stand on the security of that. Let me also say this, and I feel implored to say this to you. On the behalf of evangelicals, I want to publicly ask you to forgive us for being hateful, mean-spirited, unchristlike. It's wrong. It's a sin. It's from the pit of hell, and Jesus is not pleased with it. So please forgive my tribe for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pastor Robert. Just we have 5 minutes to go, so I want to turn to Imam Latif. You know, as I mentioned earlier, you really has been inspirational when it comes to interreligious dialogue in, you know, early age. So what message you give to the youth to engage in interreligious collaboration and basically building relationship with the people of the book and people of faith communities?
You know, I think one of the more critical things to recognize is a prevalence of antagonistic narratives that we become socialized with from the time that we're young. And it's not to say that there is more antagonism than there is the opposite, but those are just the stories that we're bombarded with. Until we get to a place where we recognize, one, our own unique ability, but also the ability of others to start changing that as a dynamic, we're gonna find ourselves continuously victim to this perpetual narrative that teaches us to be separate from each other, as opposed to anything that tells us we should come together. And I think young people play a real interesting role in the development of this. I'm the university chaplain at New York University. I share the title with the Rabbi there. We have about 50 or 60 chaplains that are affiliated with our Spiritual Life Center. And when we decided to build a Center for Spiritual Life at New York University, you know, we found statistically that 65% of all student club activities were in the frame of religion and spirituality. And many were shocked to find that at a school that has 50,000 students and is in the village of Manhattan, they just didn't anticipate that. But what it told us was that there were so many who were actually engaging this frame of their identity. NYU is not historically rooted in any specific faith tradition. And when a time when many universities that are rooted in faith traditions are moving more towards the secular, our university sought to institutionalize and really embrace spiritual diversity on its campus in my opinion, very unique ways. And the numbers that we're working with are not a dozen or 2 dozen, but you have 7,000 Jewish students, 3,000 Muslim students, 18,000 Catholic students, thousands of Protestant students, Hindus, Buddhists, humanists. And everybody was very separate from each other. And when we built this facility that now gets about 5,000 or 6,000 unique individuals coming through its door every week, you started to see a very different change in the dynamic. And it wasn't just, let's come together for a moment, let's take a photograph, we'll talk about how we all love the prophet Abraham and then go our separate ways. But it was about how do we really recognize allies and partners in a much needed work that seemingly is filled with just a lot of darkness and a lot of hopelessness, and we transcend socially constructed differences in the boxes that we put others in as well as the boxes others put us in, and start to say that we can actually really go out and build something that's remarkable and meaningful. And as young people, you can do that as well as older people. I don't think it should be something that's limited to this really fantastical understanding of what it means to be a youth, but everybody in this room has to play their part. And when you recognize that sometimes that means you're gonna have to be in a place that's uncomfortable, that you might be the only person that is saying what you're saying, looks the way that you look, dressed the way that you dress, has your accent, speaks comfortably in whatever language was your primary language, you're gonna start to recognize that there's a different opportunity for precedent. I'm gonna share one anecdote with you before I end, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Thank you.
Running out of time, but yeah.
Okay. I'm going to still share it anyway.
Yeah.
I work for the New York City Police Department, and some of you might have heard me tell this story before. And by rank, I'm an inspector. It's a fairly high rank. It's one rank below a one-star chief. And one of the things that we do as police chaplains is attend the 9/11 memorial every year on September 11th. We have breakfast at police headquarters. We take a bus down to the Ground Zero site. We participate in the memorial service as many others do. On the 9th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, Vice President Biden was there. And the memorial was set up in a very different way because construction was still taking place on the actual facility that you find there on the site now. They had the stage where the ceremony would take place, in front of them a VIP area for city officials and family members. Behind us was a press pit, and behind that, an area for the public to come and view. And as we're waiting for the memorial to start, I'm in my police uniform, an inspector's uniform. And I have my head covered, I have my beard, I'm talking to people, and 3 men approach me in suits saying that Secret Service identified you from the top of a building and they want us to check your credentials just in case. And I said, just in case what? And they said, we're really sorry that we're doing this. And I said, then why are you doing it? To be able to understand what they're questioning at that moment is not merely my physical presence, but the entire validity of my emotion tied to that space. I was an undergrad at New York University on September 11th, 2001. I stood with 10,000 of my classmates in Washington Square Park in the middle of our campus as we watched planes fly into the tower. I had people from all over the world with microphones in my face and my peers' faces asking us, what do Muslims actually think about what just happened? We found ourselves victim to much backlash, a lot of issues. I stood at many funerals for people of my faith and other walks of life who died on that day. And so much of my work today is informed by the atrocities of that day. And here these men are questioning the validity of it just because I practice the faith that I do. And the frustrating thing is not that I'm going through it, but what can I really do about it? And as everyone is watching and seeing what's taking place, there is a Latina woman who's standing next to me who lost her son on September 11th. And where I couldn't speak and others chose not to speak, she spoke and said, what you are doing right now is more dishonoring to the memory of our loved ones that we lost on that day than anything else. That here this young man is standing with us in our moment of need, and you're making it seem as if he is doing something wrong just because he is Muslim. And as much as they took that validation with such ease, she brought it right back. And I share that with you for 2 reasons. One, in order for certain battles to be won, the battles have to take place in the first place. If you do not see change in your generation, then think about what you are setting as precedent for those who come later. There are people who are not Muslims sitting on this stage. People who left their communities to let you know that you have value in their lives, and they live it. They just don't say it. You have to start doing the same thing without condition and qualification. And the second thing that I would say, when you think of a good person, a person who will uphold what religion means in the public square and allow for its longevity, think of that woman who simply did what was right to do because it was the right thing to do, not anticipating anything in return, and because she knew she had the ability to do it. You and I, collectively, with our brothers and sisters, can make a huge difference. If we just recognize our own ability that Allah has bestowed upon us, then we start simply doing right because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Imam Latif. You know, I really wanted to end this session, but Cardinal McCarrick asked me for 1 minute, and I can't just say no to it. So Cardinal McCarrick, please, and
1 minute.
yeah.
1 minute. Just to say to all of you, if the time comes when you get sad and when you think something stupid has happened, and it happens often, happens in the United States, I guess it happens all over the world. There's that stupid Islamophobia. It's a stupid thing. It's an evil thing. It's a bad thing. But if you ever get saddened by it, there's one guy in the world, one person in the world, and some of you have met him, who never says anything except good and holy things about Islam, who praises Islam for its belief in the one God, who praises Islam for your generosity to the poor and to others, who praises Islam for the wonderful example of your people of prayer. and that's Pope Francis. And if anyone wants to listen to him, listen to Pope Francis and feel better about yourselves. God bless you.
Thank you so much. I want to end by basically bring greetings to you all from Sheikh Abdullah bin Batya, who was here last year and he always wanted to be here. But I really bringing this up because it's not far away from what we are discussing here today. Sheikh Abdullah bin Batya will be hosting next month in Marrakesh a global conference bringing together more than 250 scholars and muftis and ministers of religious affairs from Muslim countries to discuss the Charter of Medina, Sahifat al-Medina, where Prophet Muhammad 1400 years ago authored a document where all people of traditions, Jews, Christians, and others could live together. We also, Sheikh also bin Batya invited witnesses, shuhada, he called them, witnesses. 3 of the people on the stage will be witnessing the declaration will come out of Marrakesh. So please just look into that. And a declaration that clearly outlines standards and protocols for people of other faiths who are living in Muslim majority communities. Brothers and sisters, please join me to thank our panel here. And we look forward to have them all next year as well. Thank you, Cardinal McCarrick.
Thank you.